And I can't quite explain why, but they are. Unless you can show that the two people are in cahoots. Did you talk with Jake about this?
I mean, he told me that it was good and that I should read it.
Uh-oh. Right, you made up your own mind, yes. All right, okay. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. Okay, Philip.
But we must consider the conditions in which they've been called to testify, right? They're filmed in the classroom.
I want people in this classroom to be perfectly honest in their opinions. And if they said love is a fallacy, was not enjoyable, I would say, why not? And we would have a discussion. Nobody's on the spot here, I hope. Law, precedent, okay? You can call in precedent. Precedent always work. What if you called in the precedent of Plessy v. Ferguson today? Would you get very far? No. What if you called in the precedent of Roe v. Wade? I'm not so sure exactly where you'd get in some courts. I just don't know. Even people who agree with the practical result of that decision say that, some people say that it was flawed in its legal reasoning. So they'd like to see the practical result, but they didn't think the legal reasoning was very good. So precedent is helpful, but not always reliable. Can precedents change? Sure, they change. They sometimes change with time. So let's open Federalist 10. Now I'm going to, because I've got the book open, I'm standing behind here not for protection or distance, but just so I can spread this out. Take a look at page 30. This is where Federalist 10 is. What is Federalist 10 about? What is the problem that he's trying to address in Federalist 10? In just a few words, Sam? What kind of violence? Violence caused by what?
Like split opinions, different opposing factions. Is
Factions,
what he calls
yes. He's trying to solve this problem of what you do in a society in which everyone or many people presumably have a voice, but there are factions. Factions are based on what does he suggest? What does he suggest is the cause of factions?
Faction can be any like passion or interest uniting people, any common grouping.
Yes, it can be. It can be that broad. It can be economic self-interest, it could be regional loyalty, it could be any number of things. So let's take a look at some of the text here. Right at the beginning, he speaks of the violence of faction, disruption. And then at the top of the next page, page 31, he says, this tendency of governments which are open to all has in truth been one of the mortal diseases under which popular governments means governments that have to do directly with the people, have everywhere perished, as they continue to be the favorite and fruitful topics from which the adversaries to liberty derive their most specious means what? You all looking up the words that you don't know when you read? Please. What does specious mean?
Like a specious claim would be a weak claim?
Yes, a weak or a false claim, or a claim that you can see right through. It's actually, I think, related to the word spectacle or seen through or something that's... So yes, now, let me translate this a little. In the early 20th century, what governments said that democracies are weak, they can't get anything done, they're too slow, they can't meet the challenges of the modern world. Where would you hear that comment coming from, say, in the 1920s or 30s? Democracies are weak, they're inefficient. They can't make the trains run on time. Oh, I know too well taking commuter rail to work.
I would say European governments.
Well, that's pretty broad.
Germany, potentially?
Yeah, like Nazi Germany.
Nazi Germany? Okay.
Yeah. Mussolini, Nazi Germany. Democracies just aren't cut out for the challenges of the modern world because they're too factious. They're not unified. They don't know how to get things done. They don't know how to work for the people. And these, in fact, Hamilton says, are specious claims. He says, faction, though, can lead to instability, and that public good is disregarded. This is a little further down. Public good is disregarded in the conflicts of rival parties. Does that sound familiar to you? Do you think that ever happens in, say, this democracy? Do you? Yeah. There's a word that we've used to describe this to some degree. What happens when the government isn't doing anything for the public good because it's all snarled up with rival parties? Gridlock. Yeah, gridlock. Gridlock, which is an image from traffic, meaning the intersection's so gridlocked with traffic that nobody can move one way or another. Pedestrians can't easily get across, traffic can't move this way. You're not solving any problems. You're not doing any public good because the two parties are at such loggerheads that they're unable to compromise, they're unable to get anything decent done. So it's interesting that right here in the Federalist paper, we see some of the very same issues that we are still dealing with and probably always will deal with in this country and in many other countries where you do have factions. And Hamilton is saying they're a problem. Factions are a problem. Now at the bottom of 31 he says, by faction I understand a number of citizens, whether amounting to a majority or minority, who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or interest, adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interests of the community. What topic did Madison just use here? Definition, yeah. He's just defined faction. He's just defined faction. Now, turn the page, page 32. There are two methods of curing the mischiefs of faction. The one by removing its causes, the other by controlling its effects. What topic did he just use here? Division, yeah. It's a form of logic. He says, now, let's reread that. There are two methods of curing the mischiefs of faction, the one by removing its causes, the other by controlling its effects. So here we also have cause and effect. What would you have to do to remove the causes of mischief that faction performs? What would you have to remove?
Liberty.
Well, yes, liberty, but what else? Yeah, you don't want to do that. But what might you possibly do in another way to stop the mischief of a faction? To remove that mischief, what might you do? Could you get rid of the faction?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that might be a problem. Why?
I mean, you'd be taking away their liberty.
Yeah, you would be taking away their liberty. So what is he saying about the cause of the mischief that factions do?
You want to preserve that?
Well, you're gonna have factions. So of these two methods of curing faction, can you remove the cause?
You can. Well,
Yes, you can.
Not practical.
But would you want to?
No.
No, you wouldn't want to. So in this division, right away we say we can't remove the causes because we have to let factions exist. Because letting factions exist is part of having a popular government. They're going to exist. Do they still exist today? Yes. We often don't call them factions. What do we call them? Well, parties, yes, parties, but also we have many names for them. Parties, what else? Interest groups, vested interests, yes. Lobbies, parties, regions, vested interest groups, you name it, all of the above, absolutely. So, then he says, there are again two methods of removing the causes of faction. So he's division again. The one by destroying the liberty, this is what you were saying, Jack, which is essential. The other by giving to every citizen the same opinions, passions, and interests. Can you give to all citizens the same? No. And do you want to destroy liberty? No. So none of that's viable. So it could never be more truly said then of the first remedy that it is worse than the disease. This is an analogy. It's similar to Isaac Backus saying we hope it dies by consumption if it doesn't by an apoplexy. Liberty is to faction what air is to fire. Well, you're going to have liberty, you're going to have faction. The second expedient is as impractical as the first would be unwise. So now, he says, there are two methods of curing the mischiefs of faction, the one by removing the causes. There are two methods of removing the causes. Neither one of those works, so where does that put us back to in the original sentence at the top of that page? What's the only way forward in dealing with factions? Connor? Yeah, controlling the effects. So how are we going to control the effects of faction? So in explaining why the second expedient is as impractical as the first, he says the diversity in the faculties of men from which the rights of property originate is not less than an insuperable obstacle to a uniformity of interests. The protection of these faculties is the first object of government. So he's talking about cause and effect there. And then he says the latent causes of faction are thus sown in the nature of man, and we see them everywhere. How is that cause and effect? This is quite a remarkable statement. The latent causes of faction are sown in the nature of human beings. What kind of cause and effect is that? Strong or weak? Very strong. It's a claim. It's a claim that if you're a human being and you aggregate in groups, there are going to be factions. It is inevitable. And then on the next page, he says, what is the most common and durable source of faction? Unequal distribution of property. What would we call that today? We wouldn't probably use that phrase. What would we say? We'd say something shorter.
Income inequality.
Yeah, income or wealth inequality. And don't forget, the two are not the same. Income and wealth inequality differ. They are correlated, but they differ. So there are a lot of people in the United States who have zero net worth. Zero. In other words, if you took their mortgage and their car payments and all of that, and you set it up against the furniture they own, stuff, they would have zero net worth. They would owe more money than they had. That's actually quite common for some people. But it's far more common for minorities, say, than it is for white people. It's just a fact. It's not a particularly good fact for the country, in my view. Madison says that is the most common and durable form of faction. Unequal distribution of property. Whether it's wealth inequality or income inequality or real estate inequality or the inequality that comes about from the fact that some people have a lot of money they can pay into campaigns and other people have nothing that they can pay into campaigns except their own labor. And very often those people are working so hard that they can't take time out to volunteer because they're already working to put bread on the table. So, this is very interesting. This is a very specific cause and effect. Faction is most commonly and perdurably caused by inequality in the distribution of wealth or property. Something we are still living with. Something that Madison is putting his finger on as the most common cause of faction. Absolutely. Turn to page 34, 3/4 of the way down. The inference to which we are brought is that the causes of faction cannot be removed. Well, we sort of heard that already a whole page and a half ago. They are in the nature of human beings. That's the way we are. If a faction consists of less than a majority, relief is supplied by the Republican principle, which enables the majority to defeat its sinister views by regular vote. Now, it's very interesting. He's talking about two types of government in the Federalist here. A pure democracy. What's a pure democracy?
Pure democracy is like an Athenian democracy where everyone votes on an issue rather than setting a
Yeah, it's like a New England town meeting. Everyone goes to the town meeting, everyone gets one vote. Is it possible for a majority of concerted citizens always to show up and vote something in or vote something down? Yes, I know, I've been to New England town meetings, and let me tell you, it is possible. We call that, if it keeps on going and that there's certain people who have an interest, we call that the tyranny of the majority. Yeah. And that is a danger of a pure democracy. Because what happens if you're always outvoted in a pure democracy 55 to 45, 55 to 45, 55 to 45? Is that fair to the 45? It doesn't seem so. I mean, you know, you can say, well, it's a democracy, the majority rules. But it doesn't seem very fair to live in a popular government where almost half the people are never getting the kind of policies that they would like to have. Does that seem fair? I don't really think it seems fair. So, Madison proposes a solution for this. The solution is not to have a pure democracy, but to have what? This is how he's going to deal with the causes of faction. Now, I'm not saying it's a perfect solution, because we've discovered in many ways it's not a perfect solution. But what's the form of government he's going to advocate as being superior? Connor. A republic, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Gotcha. Were you going to say a republic? Yes, you were. Okay, good. A republic. What goes on in a republic that doesn't go on in a democracy? Anna. There is representative government. You have representatives. Then he makes the claim, and now this is an interesting claim. What does he say about the quality of those people who are representatives? What does he say about their judgment and wisdom and foresight? Jack?
It seems like ideally they should be like the most wise.
Yes, ideally they should be like the wisest people around. I see some smiles in the audience. Yes, ideally they should be. Ideally they should be a little above the fray. Well, even today it's said that, and you hear this, even today it's said with some justice that, well, the Senate ideally is supposed to be a little more above the fray than the members of the House. They're supposed to be a little less tough and contentious and a little bit more willing to listen to one another. Whether that's always true or not is another matter. So this is the claim about a Republican form of government. So we know what the problem is, and now he says a Republican form of government might help solve the problem. By what means is this object attainable? It's on page 61 in the first new paragraph. Evidently by one of two only. What topic are we back to? Division. Yeah. He says there are two ways to deal with this. We're back to division. Either the existence of some passion or interest in a majority at the same time must be prevented, or the majority having such coexistent passion or interest must be rendered by their number and local situation unable to concert and carry into effect schemes of oppression. Now, there are two things there. Do you think the existence of the same passion or interest in a majority at the same time must be prevented? Do you think that's possible? No, very likely not possible. So, they must be rendered by their number and local situation unable to concert and carry into effect their schemes of oppression. If you've got a very small group of people, this is hard to do. But he says, what's the remarkable thing about this new country we have?
It's really big.
It's big, yeah. It's big. It's got a lot of different kinds of people living a lot of different places. And so we have the opportunity to be able to make sure that one faction or one interest doesn't constantly get the upper hand through a Republican form of government. So, over the weekend, as you're reading Corbett, go back to Madison's Federalist 10 and find as many topics as you can, okay? Read it and say, oh, he's using cause and effect. He's using probable future fact. He's using comparison. He's using definition. He's using division. Fair enough? Fair enough. Now we have a few more minutes. You can close your book. I want to turn to, you can look at it if you want, but I'm going to jump around quite a bit. But I'm going to look at Patrick Henry. Remember we looked earlier at his speech, Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death? Well, when the federal Constitution comes up for ratification, Patrick Henry is not in favor of it. He thinks it's going to put too much power into the central government, that it's going to take away the liberty, Jack, here's go back to, that it's going to take away the liberty of people, because it's going to be a stronger central government with a lot of representatives from around the country, and then that government is going to decide certain things that are not going to be decided at the local level. Ladies and gentlemen, right here is one of the continuing arguments of American governance. How much control should be in the central federal government? How much should be at the state level? How much should be at the local level? And Henry is afraid of the new Constitution and the way it's drawn up, because he says we should be a confederation instead. So just listen. The rights of conscience, trial by jury, liberty of the press, all your immunities and franchises, all pretensions to human rights are rendered insecure, if not lost, by this change so loudly talked of by some, meaning this new Constitution. What topic is he employing there? All these liberties that you enjoy, this new Constitution renders insecure, if not lost. What topic is he invoking? If we have this Constitution, all your liberties are insecure, if not lost. Anna? Cause and effect is certainly one way to do it. Or probable future fact based on cause and effect. Yes, that's what he's doing. So a little farther on, the Confederation. So we had a form of government before the Constitution, and they had a document, and that document was called the Articles of Confederation. That's what it was called. That's how the country was governed before the Constitution was approved. The Confederation, this same despised government, merits, in my opinion, the highest encomium, meaning the highest praise. It carried us through a long and dangerous war. It rendered us victorious. It has secured a territory greater than any European monarchy possesses. What is he implying here? He's implying a comparison with the Constitution. And he's basically saying, we had the Confederation, look what it did for us, a lot of good things. Why are we going to abandon it and go to a Constitution? There's an implied comparison there. The differences are too great. Because he says, what shall such a government do which has been strong and vigorous? Well, it should continue to be strong and vigorous. But it has been accused of imbecility and abandoned for want of energy. He says that's a bad thing. It's actually a very eloquent argument in favor of not adopting the Constitution. I will submit to your recollection whether liberty has been destroyed most often by the licentiousness of the people or the tyranny of rulers. Now, this is a tough one. Do you think liberty of people is more often destroyed by their own licentiousness or by the tyranny of rulers? Come on, anybody want to venture a guess? Seth?
Their own.
Maybe. That's a tough call. But Henry's making the claim that it's by the tyranny of rulers. That's his claim. And he says the more that you tend toward this federal Constitution, the more that you're going to put in the hands of a few people far away the instruments of tyranny. And we shouldn't do that. His claim is that the licentiousness of people is not the real problem of the destruction of liberty. When you come to read Madison's speech favoring the Constitution, he takes your position, Seth, that the real enemy is from within. The real enemy is faction, which is akin to the licentiousness of people, just wanting what they want and not wanting the public good. So here we have, in Madison and in Henry, some of the most elemental and fundamental debates that still we are having today about the character of government. In part because we're a large country, the United States is very big, and does it still have factions? You bet it does have factions. It has vested interests, lobbies, it has two main political parties. It sometimes has other parties, but the two main ones hold the vast bulk of seats and elected positions.